Hey everyone, welcome back to the Living in Maryland channel. And today we are discussing Baltimore traffic and just how bad is it. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the city. What does it look like to be driving in there? And then I'm going to spend a lot of time actually going over the Beltway, which is actually all in Baltimore County, and just kind of what does it look like for people from Baltimore suburbs commuting into the city, or maybe just commuting around the city. What does it look like driving around the greater Baltimore metro area on your typical day? So we're going to go over all of that in this video. I'm going to jump into the maps and just kind of give you an idea of the Beltway, different areas you want to be aware of and prepared for that have heavier traffic, and then also your other highways and main highways throughout the Baltimore County and metro area that are definitely helpful to be aware of. So we're going to jump into all of that and hop into the maps. Now, for me, I was definitely pleasantly surprised coming from Southern California, is where I was born and raised. Baltimore wasn't too bad, but there's definitely traffic here you do want to be prepared for. So depending on where you're coming from, this could be something that's kind of par for the course for you, or maybe it's a little bit better depending on where you're coming from. So my wife was born and raised here in the Baltimore metro area, so we have been back here I think about 8 years now with our two little kids, raising our family here, and it's definitely an area that we're calling home. So we're going to jump into this video here. I am a licensed realtor here in the Maryland, Central Maryland area. So if you ever have any questions about buying, selling real estate here in the area, we absolutely love having conversations around that. And how we can best assist. So however you feel comfortable reaching out, please feel free to do so anytime. And let's jump into the maps here and go into this video.
All right, so first off, we are going to hop in here into the maps, and I'm first going to start off with a little bit of the city, kind of just some information about that, and then we're going to make our way out here into the county space and some of the suburbs and give you some information on what to expect with traffic in regards to that space as well. So kind of hopping in here, a very common way, depending on what part of Baltimore you're in, is getting into the city via Beltway somehow, and then getting onto 95 here and coming in through 395. No toll roads needed at all to access the city and the inner harbor this way. So you're bringing 95, hopping off here on 395, and then you're passing M&T Stadium, and you're passing Camden Yards right here as well. And this is a very, very easy spot to get to, typically very little traffic. The traffic is typically going to start when you get here down to Light Street right here. So now you're really fully entering into the inner harbor here, and you're hopping on Pratt Street. This is where you start getting a lot more congestion right here. So that's kind of what you want to be prepared for depending on where you're going in the city. You've got another area here called Fells Point right in here. This is a popular area, especially for younger professionals. Lots of row homes and lots of cool little bars and eateries and things of that nature. And then you've also got Locust Point over here, which is a great little spot that those two are very, very accessible. So if you're actually someone living in the city and going out maybe into the county or suburbs area for work, these are very convenient areas where you don't need any toll access, and you've got pretty easy access to get back on the 95 and get out of the city. If you are looking at areas like Fells Point in here, and then you've got Canton and you've got Brewers Hill over here. These are areas that are just tougher to get to. If you want to avoid tolls, you've got to come in here. You've got to drive through the inner harbor. It's just going to take a lot of time, a lot of congestion in this region, lots of lights, and it can just really stack up on that drive time. So what a lot of people do is they're going to stay on 95 here, and then they're going to use this Fort McHenry tunnel here, which is actually the world's largest or widest, I would say, underwater vehicular tunnel, which is pretty cool, pretty crazy to drive through and under. So you can take this tunnel here, which is going to bring you out and drop you right over here in this Brewers Hill part of Canton. So that's a way to get there quickly, where you can avoid actually having to drive through the inner harbor. But you are going to have to, deal with the toll here. So that's, for the most part, those are the popular areas in the city. You've got that, Canton, Fells Point, you got the inner harbor right here, and then you've got Federal Hill right here and Locust Point over this way, where Fort McHenry National Monument is. So those are kind of the popular areas within kind of the immediate city. And then of course you got a lot of cool things like the zoo over on this kind of the more the northern part of the city. So again, that'd be hard to get through from kind of this way. So you can take 26 Liberty Road in here to access something like the zoo if you're coming from the county. You can kind of see the city lines here of where Baltimore City is right here. Everything outside is going to be Baltimore County and then stretching into a neighboring county. You can also take the Beltway up here to 83 and come in and kind of access the northern parts of the city here. That's probably the easiest way is from 83, depending on where you're coming from. So, the other thing you want to be aware of is the Baltimore toll roads. Now, there's not a ton, but there are a few. So I mentioned the Fort McHenry Tunnel here, which is basically 95. So you've got 95 coming up here, and then 95 just turns right here into the Fort McHenry Tunnel, and then you can kind of bring it all the way out. So you've got 895 as well. And then you've got Francis Scott Key Bridge, which is basically just a continuation. It's kind of that final piece of the 695 Baltimore Beltway, kind of right here, just kind of cutting you across the bay and allowing you to kind of not have to do this. Because if you are down in the southwest part of the county or the city, and you just want to kind of go over into this part of Baltimore without these toll roads here, you've got to take this Beltway 695 all the way up and around. So here's 695 Baltimore's Beltway right here, a big circle around the city. So those toll roads, depending on where you're going to, can be very, very helpful. If you are down in this region here and you're wanting to get up into, over this region or anywhere north, as you kind of stay on 95 and you start heading towards, you stay on 95, it's going to take you right to Philly. You got Hartford County up here, which is a great, suburb extension of Baltimore as well. These toll roads can come very much in handy, save you some time, energy, and effort as well. So, but other than that, there's really no other toll roads here. So these are the ones you want to be aware of. Snag your Easy Pass, which you can grab at any grocery store. And load money on there, and it's very, very user friendly, so and easy to use. So those are some things I would keep in mind for the city. Now, as you get outside of these dotted red lines, this is everything on both sides here of the Beltway. This is Baltimore County, all of this here. So you've got some popular areas here. You got Catonsville, you've got 21227, so that's Halethorpe, Arbutus, and then you got Linthicum Heights. Actually, as you cross this area here and get into Linthicum, this becomes Anne Arundel County. So all of this here is Anne Arundel County, but this region here and then all the way up here, all this space here is all Baltimore County. Baltimore County is huge. It's massive. It shoots all the way up 83 right here to the Pennsylvania line. So Baltimore County, when you say Baltimore, it can really be a massive range of different areas. So and then as you kind of get further outside this Beltway here, and then you hit Patapsco State Park here, this is where Baltimore County ends, and then this is where Howard County begins. So Howard County is another popular suburb of Baltimore. So you got a ton of people who live here in Howard County who are doing work, in Baltimore or maybe down here at Fort Meade with all the military, all the government work that Central Maryland has to offer. So hopping into the suburbs, and when it comes to traffic here, the Beltway, I would say the most congested parts, let's talk about that, are probably going to be from 83 here on down to 95 here. This region here just tends to be, it's just always congested. There's a lot of construction that's going on here all the time. This is an area that you just want to be prepared for depending on where you're coming from, so, and how often you're on it. So this is definitely an area to be aware of. And then as you get up here, this area is typically not as bad. Once you get back to Towson and then heading towards 95, this can be another area here at Towson and 95 that does get another area that gets very congested. So being aware of the traffic in those parts of the Beltway can be very helpful. Now, for someone like me, I'm in Howard County here, so I'm going to be utilizing 70 to come out here to access the Beltway. And if I'm going north on the Beltway here from 70, this is a 1-lane merge from 70, 3 lanes, merge 1 lane onto this Beltway. this always gets backed up here. So if you are, going to be driving this way, always be prepared for that heavy backup. It can be any time of the day, but especially morning and then later in the, late afternoon, early evening when traffic is at its peak. This is an area to be to be very aware of. And then of course 95. 95 is probably Maryland's largest interstate, I would have to assume. And this can get very heavy, especially during your peak travel time. So when it comes to traffic, if you are using and going to be driving on 95, definitely be aware of that. 95 is massive. It cuts all the way down. It goes all the way down to Florida. It's a massive stretch here, and a straight shot from Baltimore down to 495, which is DC's Beltway here. So 95 is going to be, very heavy. You've got 295, you've got 97 here. So, just kind of being aware of, maybe some alternate routes, or just kind of seeing what may work best for you depending on, the traffic for that particular commute that you're working with. So definitely something to keep in mind there. So you got Howard County here. This is a very popular suburb of Baltimore where a lot of people are living. So you've got either 70 to get into the Beltway, or you've got 95. Those are going to be the two major ones from Howard County of getting into the Beltway, and then depending on where people are going from there, just kind of figuring out what works best for you. Moving on to other areas of Baltimore County. So as I mentioned, Catonsville is a big one. Catonsville kind of straddles the Beltway. You've got areas of Catonsville that are inside the Beltway. You've got areas of Catonsville that are outside the Beltway. So that's, a pretty popular area. And then moving north here, you've got like Randallstown, you've got Owings Mills and Reisterstown are growing and popular areas. So this here is 795. This kind of just starts jumping off of the Beltway here, and this will take you straight up into Carroll County. So Westminster and all this area, this is Carroll County, which is a growing area because as areas like here in Baltimore County and Howard County, as they continue to get more and more expensive in regards to housing, people continue to stretch their drive and come up here into these areas where they can get a little more for their money, or a lot more for their money. So 795 is a growing highway that takes you up here into Reisterstown. Is kind of the last town here in Baltimore County before you cross here into Carroll County. So 795. Traffic can be, usually the traffic is around this area naturally as you're kind of getting to merge on or off of the Beltway. Once you get a couple miles in, there's typically not much traffic on this part of 795. This will take you all the way up to Pennsylvania, as I mentioned earlier. Once you get past, Cockeysville here, and this is all Baltimore County, it gets the population just starts dropping dramatically. So you don't have nearly as many houses, nearly as many people. So traffic on 83 on this northern part outside of the Beltway is not typically too bad. Now it's kind of interesting. There's not a straight you have to get on the Beltway to get to 83 South from the Beltway. So there's kind of like this little stagger thing happening here, which is a little annoying. It'd be nice to just kind of bypass the Beltway if you're coming from this region and just boom, but you got to get onto the Beltway and then reconnect onto 83 South to get into the city here. So that's something to be aware of too. If you're utilizing 83, you're going to have to deal with the Beltway in some capacity in this stretch right here. And then Timonium here, Lutherville, Towson are kind of at the base here of 83 in the Beltway. These are some popular areas as well. And then as you continue to move a little bit east, you've got areas like Parkville, Rosedale, White Marsh, Nottingham, areas like that right in here that are kind of on both sides of the Beltway. So those are some popular areas as well. And then you've got, as I mentioned earlier, you've got Hartford County out here is a growing area because it's a straight shot down 95 to get in here to the city and to the Beltway. So, and you got Bel Air is a kind of a popular growing area as well. But again, 95 does stay very busy. So, especially in this region here, because when you're dealing with the Beltway and that merge to 95, it does get very busy. For me, I always say this to people, it was a pleasant surprise. driving here in Maryland because traffic tends to be, pretty much kind of limited to your standard traffic time. So, anywhere from 7 to 9 and then 4 to 6. And then outside of that, everything moves pretty well for the most part. But you do want to be aware of, as I mentioned before, this stretch here, the Beltway, is just always something that can be typically the most congested. So being aware of that, and then this part as well, depending on what part you're coming from, are going to be the areas that you just want to be prepared for having the most traffic. So, but outside of that, things for the most part move really well. Now, when you get into Howard County over here, this is where the traffic almost, I mean, it's, for me, in my opinion, it's so easy. 29, especially this stretch here of 29, usually moves very well. 100, you do get some congestion around 95. You've got Hanover here where you've got like the casino, you've got a big mall around here. So, it can slow down a little bit in here, but for the most part, a lot of 100 here moves very well. A lot of 29 moves well. 95, it's always a question mark. It can always have traffic here, so this is something to be prepared for. And then 295, a lot of 295 here only has 2 lanes. So this is where it's like, sometimes it can move better than 95, but because it has such limited lanes, all it takes is just one person on the shoulder or one cop pulling someone over, and it just kind of throws everything off, and then you end up getting more congestion than you would assume here on 295. So that's something to just be prepared for. 295 is typically a better bet just because it's I think it's 4 or 5 lanes and a lot of stretches there. So and then 29 is anywhere, usually 3 lanes in most of this. So most of the stretch here in 29. So that's and I mentioned Howard County because it is a popular suburb of Baltimore, even though it's a little bit removed. But a lot of this area here, you can get into Baltimore in 25 minutes flat. So so pretty doable from that standpoint. So anyways, if you guys have any questions about traffic, commuting times, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have about this. Feel free to reach out anytime, and we will talk to you in the next video.